Last bit about me. We have the reason to believe, we have the power to succeed. But when you let me down, you leave a bad taste in my mouth. Mike Minute and Ken Hammond. Eventually, my mom was moved down to a mental hospital in Camarillo. She was there for 8 of her 54 years, after being in San Luis mental hospitals for 3 years. The Camarillo Hospital eventually closed, and she was moved further south to Los Angeles. She was there for around 4 years, and then to a place in Fresno for several more. Well, I was growing while this was going on, and like I mentioned earlier, I started massively pulling away. I could not handle this situation, absolutely unable to handle it. And that's okay. I was a child, a kid. Then I became a teenager, and I still couldn't handle it. I'm not going to ask you to imagine how life was for my mom, but I did just write it. The point is, I do not want to imagine what life was for my mom. Writing this now makes me start. It's terrible. Let's stop. Save it for another time, maybe. When I turned 16, my grandpa arranged for my mom to be released from the mental hospital. He had had enough. Mary Beth was going to get better, under his care. He would see to it. So, my mom moved back in with us for about a week. It was awkward. She was like a child, like a fully grown adult child. She didn't speak. She smiled almost all the time. She could not sit still, up, down, rocking, shaking her legs. And she constantly kept peeking into my room to see me. And I would see her, and I would smile and say, "Hi." And she would start chuckling and giggling, and she would run away back to the living room with her parents. She would eat spoonfuls of sugar straight from the bowl. My grandparents did not like this. I thought it was super weird, and I felt sorry for her. I mean, it's obviously sad. However, you cannot imagine how terrible I felt about it. Or can you? Go ahead and try. I dare you. She slept in a little guest room in the middle of the house. There were restless nights. They were restless nights for her. She got up and out of bed to come and check on me, to come and check on her mom and dad, to eat a bowl of sugar like a child. Grandpa gave up, or he understood that he and Grandma couldn't take care of and supervise her along with her son. So back into institutional care she went. And, forgive me, I didn't care. I was wanting to forget it, deny it, ignore it. I don't care, just forget about it. There was nothing I could do. I was helpless. I knew that. Or, who knows, maybe I wasn't. Maybe there was something I could have done. Either way, she was back in a care facility. Not a mental hospital, just a care facility. She spent the rest of her life there. She suffered the rest of her life there. I visited, but not often. She just got worse and worse. She had a lot of falls. There was at least one stroke that went unnoticed for some time. I watched her deteriorate from as much distance as I could. My grandparents, at least one of them, would visit every day. My grandpa was still not giving up on her, insisting he could teach her to communicate through a series of blinks. 1 yes, 2 no. It didn't work. Interesting aside, the dude from high school, the cool kid who gave me the disobey flyer thingy, he actually worked there. I bumped into him one day. I told him what he was doing was amazing, and that it took a huge heart to do what he was doing. Which is true. You have to be very, very caring to work in a place like that, to confront suffering every day for hours on end. But the opposite can also be true. You can be very, very uncaring and work in a place like that because people lie and are fake all the time, often for money. Finally, early in the morning on October 18th, 2004, my mother passed away. Her feeding tube had come out about a week before, and doctors had recommended keeping it out. There really was no hope. We were all with her on the night she passed. We fed her morphine until she drifted. My grandpa stayed with her the entire time. My grandma took a picture of me with her. I felt uncomfortable, again, but I also felt relief. A lot of relief. Surprisingly, I feel pretty terrible about that right now. But this is nothing special. This is nothing new. This is just my situation. In 2006, I moved down to Los Angeles with my girlfriend. We broke up. I was a couch riding bum for a bit and still relied on my ex an awful lot. And you know what? She was there for me. She is a fantastic and absolutely great person. In 2011, my Aunt Sherry told me that Grandma and Grandpa weren't going to be around forever. I told her I knew. But I thought about it, and I took it to heart. For Christmas that year, I wrote each of them a letter. I expressed how much each of them meant to me, in their own way, what each of them meant. That was a really good thing. The best thing I had done in my life at that point. By 2012, my grandpa was not doing so good. Grandma needed help taking care of him. I always had an inkling this was my fate, as when growing up, I asked my grandparents why they take care of me. Because we love you, my grandma said. Because when we get old, we want you to take care of us, my grandpa said. Grandma called me up and asked me to come back to San Luis and help take care of Grandpa. I would absolutely do that. I came back home, where I was born, where I was raised. Grandpa was pretty bad off. No one knew exactly how bad he really was. He died within a month of my return. The day after his own mother was born, the day before his first child was born, it was July 18th. I love him, and I miss him. I'm currently taking care of Grandma. Her hearing is bad, her memory is bad, her bones hurt, and she is desperately depressed. She was a woman from the 50s, married to a man from the 50s, so she never learned how to express herself, I don't think. Not even sure if she was allowed to have a private life, or if she even knew she could have one. She still has the hardest time saying what she feels. But I can get it out of her. Never stop trying. Or do. Like I said, I'm not your boss. Free will, free thought, truly great gifts. Use them while you can.